Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jaden, and this is the very first installment of OC Oh My, a series I'm making so I can get these people out of my head and onto your screens. Does anyone have a story you put yourself to sleep with? Like every night when you close your eyes, you start where you left off the night before, and you just keep going? Well, I do. When I was in high school, I got really into webcomics. I've talked about it in another video. But I found Hiveworks through the Sister Claire comic and started going through their catalog. Some of my favorites are Sleepless Domain by Mary Cagle, The Substitutes by Palace of Posey, and How to Be a Werewolf by Sean Lenore. I'll have links to each of those in the description. I immediately wanted to start making my own, so I thought up the idea that would be twisted, warped, and evolved over the years to become what it is now. I've forgotten the concept of making this a comic, because that's just not what I want to do anymore, but I've always kept it in my head, just giving myself that little time to keep adding on. It's like a fun way to wind down. I just think of a little bit more of a story. But the comics I mentioned, as well as others, and shared inspirations like magical girl animes and the adventure fantasy genre as a whole, and as always, gay people, are what inform this kind of concept. So pieces of all can be found in the story that I'm gonna be kind of relaying through these videos. I don't really see myself making this into anything more, maybe just like adding bits and pieces, but like sketches here and there on other websites, but I don't think much more. Like, I'm not going to build off of this. I don't think. So, I've been sketching for a while now. I think this is the line art layer, maybe? Anyway, let's get into this character. Meet Imbasa. No last name. But actually, first, let's do some world building through the form of an exposition dump. Family names aren't really a thing where she's from, that being the nation of vampires, Bekele Kulu. Magic is inherent in everyone in this world, but those who choose to hone it can do incredible things. Kind of similar to like talents in this world, you know? So Imbasa, for instance, can make weapons out of moonlight, like her moon scythe and her bow shone. Hard enough to dent diamonds, but still pretty light. Vampires are a young race. Only about 500 years have passed since Vlad Dracula turned the last bitten vampire, his love, Jonathan Harker. But now, vampirism is passed down through genetics, so it's a little weaker than most other iterations, since it's not like an actual like transfer of power. It's just like a genetic code thing. Kind of like how elves are, with an extended life, but with some more conditions to make yourself immortal. So blood still prolongs the life, but it's not necessarily needed to live, if that makes sense. So Bekele Kulu, the nation of vampires, was founded by Queen Yemoja that same year that Dracula bit the last turned vampire, and using her water magic, she shielded the entirety of the nation from the sun so that they can vibe in there. The same magic would then be studied over the next 500 years and used to enchant clothes and armor to provide sun protection to those outside of the bubble's reach. Okay, now that we're done with that, let's actually get to Imbasa. Being raised and trained by the Moon Watchers, a prolific group of vampires who get their magic from bathing in moonlight and not feeding on the living, Imbasa was attuned with her magic from a young age and rose through the ranks quickly. So I guess If you were to want to refer to her respectfully, you'd say Imbasa of the Moon Watchers. Also, if you hadn't already put it together, her magic is heavily based on the constellations and planets. I love the idea of a lone wolf protagonist that gets forced into a team, and better yet, they're the leader. Unlike most lone wolves, though, she isn't a brooding downer. Think more Kakashi after Naruto, and less Sasuke. She's fairly quiet, letting her actions speak for herself, and while she can be stone cold and confident, she becomes shy with praise, especially from Anila, who is the next character we'll be delving into in this series, which is a fun little tease. Imbasa knows what she wants and works hard so she can get it. Her entire life has been devoted to the protection of her people, and that means the protection of the crown. She spent most of her waking hours during her youth training and helping the Moon Watchers with tasks. So she's made a name for herself. She's honor-bound to anyone she deems worthy. She's a natural-born leader and begrudgingly knows it. She always seems to be picking up strays wherever she goes, and while she'd rather do things on her own, the young warrior can see value in others, even if they can't see it themselves. She wants to believe that there is good in everyone, but if not shown in a timely manner, the vampire will not hesitate to cut you down, especially if you threaten her or those who are important to her. A natural talent for combat paired with a life of training to be the best, she's a pretty worthy adversary to anyone. Although, she's about to face a journey that's gonna challenge her in ways she couldn't imagine. And the story begins with her leaving the city-state of Bekelekulu for the first time on a mission. Alright, now that story time is done, let's talk about her design. To really get the lone wolf vibe across, I want her to be the darkest character in terms of overall color palette. She'll also have the darkest skin tone, but don't worry, we're spanning the skin spectrum and repeating some tones too. So, not the last, but is the first, I guess technically. in this scenario. Anyway, the goal is to make her design contrast but not isolate her from the group. Starting with her clothes, they needed to evoke her status as a soldier, but look more specialized for advanced movement. So she has a chest plate, arm braces, and greaves. We're still covering vital components, but still leaving openness for for advanced fighting techniques, which she will do a lot of once I draw them. On her chest plate, she has the insignia or crest of Bakelakulu, which brings in some color and evokes her home. The symbol does give an intimidating appearance with the blood red color and the fangs and blood drop, but that's just that's their thing. And the moon also ties in the Moon Watchers as a part of the Vampire Society, which I think is fun. The bubble braids give her a triple moon kind of vibe, at least to me, and also helps create an interesting silhouette. The other characters will have brighter and bolder palettes to fit their personalities. So for all of her armor, I did a deeper gray tone that's still lighter than her skin tone for contrast, but evocative of someone who fights during the night mostly, which she would. The accents of red on her knees, chest insignia, and arm, like I said, bring the mind to blood and vampirism, while also giving an intimidating warrior vibe, I believe. The night sky blue of her underclothes further cools down her palette and defines her body within her silhouette. So I want her to feel very silver, cold, just very cool in tone to bring some contrast to the group. And also the way I'm designing these characters, I'm kind of doing them in pairs. And so with the next character design, Anila, I plan to have some more contrasting, warmer, maybe some oranges, complementary colors. Who knows? I do because I've already done it, but Oh, I also, now I'm just off script. The moon weapons, I think, turned out well. I just kind of used the color wheel until I found colors that I wanted to use, and then used a limited palette to work from. So I think the blue and gray were, I built those off of each other, I think. And when I say build off of, I mean when I had the blue, when I had the gray, I just dragged it to a blue, and then at that same kind of level of depth, so the value, I just moved it into the blue, and then I made it a little darker. That's kind of how I do it. And then usually shading and highlighting kind of help bring the palette together. But I do usually try to not have crazy intent or combative palettes. Anyway, this purple I did for the outline of the hair, which I thought was a fun detail to do too, since her hair and her skin are so dark. To have that really light contrast that kind of gives off the illusion of the light from her weapons bouncing off of her hair. But also, her hair could just be like that. I think that's kind of fun. I really like how these greaves turned out, especially at the back, how I used put straps across, and it kind of brings the red down into the design too, which I think is really fun. But figuring out how I don't even know if it does technically work, but figuring out how to visually at least come up with what the back of the greaves would look like, because she needs to be able to bend her legs, and so it can't just like wrap around the whole thing unless I were to leave just like an empty space at the knee. But I thought it would make a little more sense if she has to like strap it all the way up to kind of have a tight fit that allows movement. I don't know, it just seems to make the most sense in my head. I like how these, like the baby hairs turned out, I think, but I could definitely do a little more. I need to do some like visual research on baby hairs and the styling, because I know what I want it to look like in my mind, but actually drawing it is a different story. So, in the future, keep an eye out for better baby hairs. And I know it doesn't really make sense on the back of her, like her kitchen, basically. I don't know, I just think it's so cute. It reminds me of, I've seen a lot of TikToks of these women getting pixies for the first time in their lives, and just the way that they sculpt that hair, it is so visually pleasing. It's beautiful. I love it. And so I thought I'd introduce some of that with her, because I feel like as a like higher up official like soldier person, she would have like specific ways that she has to present herself. And so like having your hair done already in the Black community is like a huge thing. And so why not make that a parallel? It kind of makes sense in my head, at least. Ooh, let's talk about the eye color, because I wanted to keep it brown. I didn't want to give her like, I don't know, brown eyes can be magical. And so she just has pretty light ones to really contrast against her skin. That's really why I made that decision. But I do think it makes her look kind of otherworldly. It really like brings your focus to the eyes, even more than like having that white in the center of such dark skin. That contrast, it just is really nice. And then you get to the kind of orange brown eyes, and it's a little like, whoa. I don't know if that made any sense, but it is something I said, and I'm sticking by it. I was worried about how I was going to convey these, or how I was going to draw or present the weapons made out of moonlight, which is why I'm so happy with that color that I chose for it. Against the white, I think it just works. It kind of looks like, it like definitely looks solid, but it's ethereal and magical at the same time. But I really like the kind of shaded look. It still doesn't necessarily look like, I guess this isn't its final form. If I were to render this in like an actual environment, I'd have to make it glow because it would. But I think for this like pretty basic, this is what this character looks like sense, it works and translates. How it's going to translate. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Now we're onto shading. I kind of did everything out of order with this because I was working on it for so long. I've been wanting to draw these characters and I have no like chill with drawing. I'm not like a person who sketches for fun necessarily. I'm always like, okay, what am I gonna make? Because if I don't have like a goal, I just don't really do it. Not necessarily that I need something out of it, but if I don't plan, like most of my sketching is just planning out pieces. And so I had this sketch for a while and I just like wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. And then I thought, maybe some character sheets for my characters. So now I'm doing them. But so, all of that to say, I had this for a while. Now I'm glad that I'm actually doing something with it. And it's gonna propel me into doing all of them. So now these characters that I have in my head, I can finally see them in like a physical, quote unquote, physical form. But yeah, I really like how this bow turned out. It's very fun. I wanted it to look very hair-esque because it's Sagittarius is the inspiration for it. You can see the little horse head on the end of the arrow, which I thought was a fun, cute little detail. Shading the metal, I don't know if it, like, I think it translates, but I also could just like be delusional. But I really like how it turned out. I think it, like, the contrast is really what I wanted for the metal to look shiny. So having that really dark shadow and the really high highlight, I think translates it enough, you know. Back on the sketching thing, because now I'm thinking about it, because I love doing the coloring, even the line art really, because then it's all like set up, which I feel like is not normally people's favorite part. I feel like people love sketching, but I do not like it. There's nothing there and I kind of have to build it out, but like if I'm not in the right headspace, I cannot figure out 3D forms translating to 2D. And like it's something I just need to practice. But sometimes my brain is just like, girl, I don't know. And sometimes my brain is like, oh yeah, I can visualize this and like turn it into lines really easy. I guess everyone just has those days, but sketching is not my vibe. I love once it's like there, I'm like, okay, now I know how to make this look 3D in some shape or form. But so I love shading. It's so fun. I hope it translates. It would be so embarrassing. I was like, oh, I love shading. I love like color, and like it just looks so bad, and I'm just delusional. But I guess that's just the name of the game. But I do feel pretty confident in it. Like it looks fine, at least. I thought that was fun. Adding a little dip into the shadow so that I could put a highlight there. Yeah, there it is. So fun. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the very first episode of OC Oh My. I know I did. There are even more to come, so subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified when I get them out. I'm aiming for a video per month, as that's really all I have time for at the moment. If you'd like to support me and my art, you can check out my Kofi store. I have some Pokemon wallpapers for mobile devices, as well as some more designs that are coming up that I'm excited to share with y'all. Actually, the next video I'm working on is a little challenge including some spooky Pokemon backgrounds to welcome in autumn, so look out for that. In the link below, or at the username on the screen at the end of the video, and the little coffee cup guy I have. I think it should actually be coming up soon. But you can also check out my Bluesky and Instagram if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!